Hello, everybody. You know I have to rant about this if you know I was a fan. Confessions of a former Marvel fan. And it pains me to say former. I think I don't really mean former in the sense of that I'm done with Marvel. I still love Spider-Man, especially I have kids now, so everything's coming back. Love the X-Men. The Hulk. I still love a lot of characters, but I'm just done with Marvel as is right now, as I think a lot of people are. And I just kind of want to rant about how they could build something so fascinating and unique only to destroy it so quickly. Again, you could say quickly, but it's actually like Iron Man 1 was in 2008, right? So I want to go back a bit further even, because I think that the downfall and the shift that we're seeing right now is actually kind of like why superhero movies weren't taken seriously in the first place. Like you have like the old school superhero movies. I would name those like the Superman Returns. Yeah, Batman 1 was actually maybe a little bit ahead of its time in some sense, because it went a little bit darker than like the average superhero movie. It still embraced kind of the absurd a little bit, but especially like Batman 1 and 2, like from 98, like from Tim Burton. They had that little, like with the Penguin, it was of course very goofy and like, but even that first one with Jack Nicholson as a Joker, it kind of had a little shift towards taking comic book movies seriously, right? Like I think that went down the drain with Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. I mean, as a kid I liked them, but these weren't really movies, right? Like at least not serious dramatic movies. But I would say it shifted with X-Men. X-Men 1. X-Men 2 was my favorite superhero movie for a long time. Maybe still is like one of my top movies. What Bryan Singer did there was just really amazing. And it's interesting to kind of see like the same for Spider-Man, like Spider-Man, Sam Raimi, Spider-Man 1, 2, 3. And the interesting thing is like what you see there on a micro scale is kind of I think what happened to Marvel maybe at a larger scale. I think what made these successful is to not treat them as comic book movies as like a separate genre, but saying these are science fiction movies. And in a science fiction movie, okay, some things may be extreme, or in some sense, you take serious what's happening within the world, like Terminator or something. Terminator was capped, Terminator 1, Terminator 2. It was an interesting movie and a tense and exciting and thrilling movie because they take the world seriously. They take this threat of some robot from the future, which sounds a little ridiculous. They take that seriously and they make a very compelling movie. Well, they did that with X-Men 2. What if this really was like true, that people would mutate, and kind of like the more grounded feeling of treating it more like a science fiction movie with actual characters, and these characters feel things and have to develop and go through things. That actually made it super interesting. They're actually like, wow, this is cool. And these are actually fascinating characters. If you place characters in these situations with these weird powers, you can actually amplify their humanity, even though they're like not completely human. They're kind of superhuman or mutants or stuff. So that's what I really, really loved about that first X-Men series and Spider-Man series. And you could see kind of like what I said, like both those series to me had a similar kind of downfall as what Marvel's having right now, is that you had like X-Men 1, X-Men 2, X-Men 3, Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3. And to me, the mistake they both made was they kind of didn't really take take themselves seriously anymore. In the sense of like the third ones all went back to, in some sense, the silly comic-y stuff. Although X-Men 3 was kind of serious in its topic and still tried to do that. That was, I guess, just bad storytelling and some bad just bad. Just not really grasping the potential of the kind of story you had on hand, especially compared to X2, again, which is to me so fascinating. I guess maybe the strength and maybe sometimes some people would say the weakness of the X-Men movies that were actually kind of like Wolverine and the X-Men. But he was the most fascinating character. I mean, and so I don't mind because I love Wolverine, but I get the complaint that X-Men fans have of like it's basically just Wolverine is kind of like the anchor. But maybe because they had an anchor that made it possible to make that interesting story, especially X2. But nah, anyway, Spider-Man 3 kind of had the same thing like the third one, just stuff that with villains created that goofy kind of Venom that wasn't really believable. You can't get the superhero team up that wasn't really that kind of felt out of place in some sense, and it kind of went back to like these kind of superhero tropes where you felt like, nah, not quite believing this, and not really. It still tried to be serious, but yeah, I don't know. Just some storytelling quirks, I guess. Like, so with Marvel was interesting. I always want to just look at just Marvel. I kind of started with Iron Man. I had to be honest. Like when Iron Man came out, I did not expect that to be a successful movie. Like I thought Iron Man. I collected those Marvel Legends action figures, so I was like, oh yeah, that figure was also always pretty cool. But the Avengers were kind of like the B team from Marvel. You know, I had Spider-Man, the X-Men, the Hulk. And then you kind of had the rest, you know, Captain America, which I always found such a silly, stupid character, like in his blue outfit, running around with a shield. I don't know. It was to me like just a stupid character. Iron Man, I was kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like the Batman from Marvel, but then less cool. Another billionaire that has gadgets and stuff. I like that. Suit was cool, but the rest is kind of like, yeah. So I never thought. When Iron Man came out, I was like, I wonder if they can pull that off. Because, again, the climate was, you can't really do superhero movies. And then when X-Men and Spider-Man came out, and they were very successful, and around, isn't the Dark Knight also, the series Batman Begins? I think that's also around there. Batman Begins was in 2005. Yeah, so it's also around there. So there you have this trend, but you think it's Batman, right? Like, Batman is like one of the most popular superhero characters, and he's just awesome, I guess. He is in some sense easy to, yeah, you think maybe because we've been spoiled by Christopher Nolan that you think he'd be easy to adapt as a serious character, but maybe like before that nobody was actually thinking that. But I was thinking that when you read the graphic novels, you're like, this could be like some serious dark stuff. Anyway, he came around. He was like absolutely amazing, of course. I mean, so you had these three trilogies, I would say, X-Men, Spider-Man, Batman, which I would also say are like the three biggest superheroes, except for maybe like Superman, just being well known. But I would say the biggest three superhero names, superhero brands that were there and that had successful movies. So I was like, are they gonna pull off the B team? Because I mean, I was a geek. Because when I was older, even though when I was a kid, I didn't have access to all these graphic novels. I read some more, especially love Daredevil, for example. Daredevil, that movie kind of has a special place in my heart, even though it's kind of like an in-betweener. I kind of hit and miss. The director was a lot better, but still feel a bit goofy. Just not quite. I still liked it, but they also did some things where you're like, should have stuck a little bit more to the original story. Anyway, when Iron Man came out, I was like, how are they just gonna pull this off with just a small, like this geeky group? You have the geeky group, X-Men, Spider-Man, okay, Batman I can get a little bigger, had that show somewhere, you know, like the Adam West show, so it's more in the public consciousness than these other superheroes. But then to me, it was like, you have Iron Man, which is like just part of the geeks, because he's like the B team. So it's like, how am I gonna make this successful? And then that was just an amazing movie. Like, that was just a great movie. And Robert Downey Jr. was just absolutely amazing as Tony Stark. Like, such a characteristic kind of character. And I guess, like, him, like, revealing his identity at the end of the movie, they kind of broke a couple of the, you would say, some superhero tropes in some sense, or some superhero things that you were expecting, especially from the characters you've seen, like X-Men, Spider-Man, Hulk, of kind of like a tormented hero in some sense, whether it's a bit less serious with like Spider-Man, although Spider-Man got his shit kicked in a lot, like in the Raimi, a lot went wrong for him all the time. X-Men, of course, Wolverine with his trauma, Batman, my parents, you know, like. And then you have Iron Man, that was kind of like an irresponsible superhero. Of course, they did layer him with, he has these layers, but that made him also interesting and compelling as a character. I think that also helped, because otherwise it would be like, yeah, just another rich guy like Batman, you know. But to be Like Batman is more driven from a sense of, I guess he's tormented, of course, by the loss, a sense of duty, I would say. Like, this happened to me, this can't happen to everybody else. And it's very interesting to see like an Iron Man in some sense driven by guilt. Like, oh, I did this. Like, I was irresponsible, arrogant. These weapons have been all over the world now. So that was kind of like a new dynamic. I think that was made it fresh, and then it ended, of course, with that after credit scene. We'd hate to talk about the Avenger Initiative. And again, I didn't have anything with the Avengers. I was like, nah, maybe Thor was interesting. Like, I just didn't like these characters. But still, I got to admit, like, the geek side of me was like, ooh. I wonder what they're going to do with that. Then came Incredible Hulk. That was just trash. Like, I liked Ang Lee's Hulk, and I was like, okay, they're gonna make the Hulk a bit more aggressive, like because Ang Lee's Hulk was like maybe a little bit too much on the drama side. Although, again, I like the idea of exploring these characters as real characters, to focus on Bruce Banner, not just on the Hulk. And to me, it actually amplifies it when the hero side is on screen, actually, because it's like the scarcity, right? Like scarcity. It was that actually makes it more special in some sense. And the Spider-Man series as well. The Spider-Man series were about Peter Parker, who is Spider-Man, clearly, to me. Batman Begins also focused a lot on Bruce Wayne. Like, I think that was actually the strength. In the X-Men movies, of course, they're kind of like both at the same time. So Wolverine is Logan Wolverine. I think that was the strength, right? And then Incredible Hulk came, and I was just like, they recast like a bunch of stuff, of course, and I get like they didn't want to fish. I didn't really like Eric Bana that much as the Hulk. But Edward Norton, I mean, I guess he did a good job. But to me, it just didn't. I just didn't feel like Bruce Banner. I don't know. I just didn't really. And it was, the animation was just like so over the top, bad to me. Like the Hulk was just such. I don't know. I just didn't like that Hulk. It was too CGI, right? Like and just, I don't know, a little too over the top, and a bit again to the kind of slapstick comedy thing, I'd say. So to me, that wasn't like, Iron Man was great, but that wasn't really like that great of a start. In Iron Man 2, I was kind of hyped about that. Maybe wait, before I go through the movies, like, yeah, just that first phase maybe. Like, I actually didn't, it wasn't until Avengers that I really felt like, oh wow, this was really cool. Because I liked Iron Man, didn't like Incredible Hulk. Iron Man 2 was, was like cool, but very slightly disappointing. But slightly, not like huge, but like, again, kind of like, it's Iron Man, like, it's not that Wolverine. I don't expect, it didn't hurt like X-Men 3 hurt, or like Spider-Man 3 hurt, because I was a Venom fan. Anyway, Dark Phoenix, everybody knows what happened. Then came Thor. That was kind of like, meh, nah. Some nice scenes, but as a movie, you're like, yeah, forgettable. Then came Captain America. You're like, forgettable. Exactly what I thought these heroes would be. And then came Avengers, and I was like, I didn't see this coming, that this was just going to be awesome. Anyway, so that was for me the start of afterwards, because of kind of like the bar they set of a lot of disappointment actually starting into phase 2 already. And yeah, I'll get to that, how that went up and down. But what brought Marvel down? I guess I got to tell this until indeed, to me, the downfall started. Iron Man 3. That's where that shit began. Like, to me, that's where I began. Like, again, Thor, Captain America, they were just average movies because, to me, again, the characters just weren't that interesting. Their conflict wasn't that interesting. Thor's on Earth. Like, in theory, it's interesting. Oh, you need to learn how to, be worthy of the hammer. The premise was interesting to me. Loki was kind of interesting. But then it just felt like again, the final battle against that, the blaster thing, just kind of felt like an empty battle. It didn't really feel like the villain, even though Loki was interesting, clearly, to me. It didn't really feel like the villain was fleshed out well. Similar, I think, with Captain America. I mean, it was so forgettable I can barely remember that movie. And they started with a little bit of like the comedy thing kind of came in, what ruined Marvel to me. In Avengers, it felt balanced because you kind of had the interesting banter. Like Josh Whedon, I think, directed one. I really liked the way he he combined the characters and created this interesting dynamic between the characters. I just liked kind of like that development, and it took a little bit of a serious note. It doesn't mean like there wasn't any type of comedy there, but I like it when the comedy is kind of like contained within a character, like for example, Iron Man Downey Jr. is just like a douchebag, basically. You have that danger of what you had with the Pirates of the Caribbean series, where it was like the first movie was like, oh, they like Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow. Let's just ruin everything by just over amplifying that to making it even so ridiculous that you can't take the character series anymore at all. And that's kind of like the danger they have with Tony Stark sometimes, but for some reason he still kind of just pulled it off a little bit, because they also created that conflict. Like you see that in that conflict that when he clashes with Captain America in that movie, it's his banter is like well integrated within his character. He is like that, and the other people respond to that in a realistic way, like in a situation where like everything's a effing joke to you, right? Like so, it's grounded in the world, even though you could be like, oh, it's such an annoying character. You think he is an annoying character, but where this whole one again, Avengers 1, I really like that one. Really cool how they pulled it off. It was amazing. Like nothing like that ever. Like DC has never really been able to replicate it. And then came Iron Man 3. Let's just say a little prayer, everybody. It's, man, that was so painful, because like you felt like, especially after Avengers, again, a little serious note, a little bit on their conflict. The Coulson guy died. Like they took the idea of the attack on New York seriously. They had some comic relief, you know, with the Hulk punching Thor and with the Loki thing, but for some it wasn't that heavy-handed. And then came Iron Man 3, and that just started pissing on, again, that development that I said, like that micro thing that you have within like X-Men and Spider-Man. And I would say that X-Men and Spider-Man didn't really do it in a humor way, although Spider-Man 3, everybody knows that scene. They started doing that, subverting the expectation of the audience with humor, at the cost, to me, a genuine, like, what do you call it? Like, emotional development of the characters. So, first they hit us with an amazing trailer with the Mandarin. So everybody's like, whoa. And then, some people call me a terrorist. I consider myself a teacher. And it was just fascinating, because it had this dark vibe. You're like, oh, this is going to be interesting. Like, this is going to be interesting as a film, because Iron Man 1 fights a giant robot. Iron Man 2 kind of fights a giant robot again. Okay, this is interesting. So in the comic, what are they going to do with the Mandarin? Like, he's kind of like, so they're framing it as a terrorist because of kind of like the political climate. I get that. In the comics, it was more like magic. I'm always kind of like, I don't really like magic that much. But I was just very interested, like, okay, this is going to be fascinating. Is this going to be like his Joker, in a sense, right? Like this, his kind of weird force that clashes with him that he can't really fight directly. Is he going to fight him like mentally? You know, I was just so fascinated. And when that movie came, oh man. I remember what I felt like. You know, these horrific, traumatic moments. Did you ever know where you were, what you were thinking? Like, we were sitting there in the theater. I remember that shit, man. Like, the moment they revealed, like, oh, and oh, funny that the Ben Kingsley, like that character, oh, he's just an actor and he has a funny English accent. And I was like, pardon my French, fuck you. Sorry. No other words. F you. I was just so pissed. And then they started that movie off with the idea, also in the trailer, of like him having trauma. Like, he's just some billionaire guy that just walks around in this suit, and now all of a sudden with the fight on New York, with all these aliens, seeing like this alien fleet when he drops the nuke, coming back, like the idea of him having post-traumatic stress, and then it's fascinating. It's like wow, yeah, why don't we talk about that? All these superheroes go through these horrific things. How in the world do they process this? And they just treat it like a joke. That's stupid. The thing with that kid, then it just becomes like this kind of buddy comedy. Wow, beautiful bird. This buddy comedy thing. Oh, let's see. I don't know if I can show it to you. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it? No, you probably can't. Anyway, that's it. There's the beautiful bird right there. I hated that so much because, again, it stopped taking the movie and the character seriously and made it like slapstick almost to me. And that, to me, again, that's what's kind of like what happened in the Batman and Robin and Batman Forever level. Like, to me, it was that kind of level, like, we all know this is just ridiculous. And then you want me to care about the climax at the end. Like, that was just to be so frustrated. And it has this, because you do the subverting thing, you build anticipation through that trailer, and you kill that. You kill, like, of course, the trailer technically is outside the movie world, but within our world, these are part of the way you build a story, especially in a cinematic universe, right? Like, in cinematic universe, you are building your movie, not just in your movie, but through all these other movies and all the other forms of content you put out. So even without the trailer, like, again, the trailer, it was really like the trailer did the most of it, but I would have been disappointed even if we had no trailer and I would have just gone to the movie just see it. Again, because you are promising something. Here, I'm a storyteller as well. I'm a writer on my second book now, and you are subverting the expectation of the audience in such a way, to me, such a damaging way. So I think, why did it still work in that it was successful? Because Marvel started to reach more and more non-fans. It started to reach more and more non-Marvel fans, in the sense of people that were Marvel Comics fans. Let's keep it like that. So people became Marvel movie fans. And they were like, oh, ha, 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 he's not some scary guy. But for the comic fans, it's like, isn't Mandarin like the villain for Iron Man? Like, is his arch nemesis, kind of like? So it's kind of like people are like, you make a Batman movie, and then the Joker comes out, and he's an actual clown. He's just a comedian, he's just a clown, and he just get bum, 2 punches to the face, and then he locks him up. You'd be like, F you, burn the theater down. Like, and that was kind of what I had of like, wow, they can only do this because Iron Man is a minor hero, and just shit on the hardcore fans, and then create this other villain that, again, you then have no emotional attachment to. It was just like, oh, it's the corporate guy, that's a bad guy. Like the first movie, like, you have these thin, and then then there's no weight to the villain. So that's like one theme I see where I come to. One is just bad storytelling. To me, this is just bad storytelling. You're subverting expectations. You're not taking your character serious. This is like the second thing. No more villains. This is one of the things I've written down. Like, there's no more villains. Like, that this is like the downfall to me also, like, you're going to see in like a lot of these movies, is that they don't, the moment they're connected, like bad storytelling is usually, there's no real reason to care about the hero. There's no real reason to care about the villain. There's no real development of character, and the plot doesn't make any sense. Like, these type of things, almost all these things started to happen in Marvel. So what kept me going is still the idea of the promise, right? So the idea, the belief that this is just a slip up. Then came Thor: The Dark World. Well, that was just absolute shit. And that was kind of like, again, same trend. You get to the end, again, you have a villain you don't really care about. There's not really a lot of development in Thor himself. Why? Because they undercut any type of serious attachment to the character with stupid comedy. And this is kind of where it started. And I kind of forgot Thor: The Dark World and kind of brushed it off, in a sense of sort of like, well, Thor 1 was mediocre. I told you Thor was a stupid character, right? That's kind of how I justified it to myself. But again, that was, again, a villain like that you don't care about, doesn't have interesting motivations. And the undercutting here, it became, in some sense, even worse, because Iron Man did it throughout the movie. Still tried to build somewhat of a climax, but again, still too much comedy there. The comedy in like the serious moments started to creep in. But again, for me, it was like the main bulk of the movie was already like, I don't even care anymore. Like, you're treating his post-traumatic stress like a joke with this little kid, and you're treating the villain like a joke. How am I supposed to care about this as a viewer? How am I supposed to care about have any type of emotional attachment to like the climax, right? Then Thor: The Dark World, again, like I said, just down the drain. And they really started with like, in the final, kind of like the final scenes, I think it was like the subway scene, they, start to do like funny stuff while the world is in danger. Like, completely unrealistic, pulls you out any type of... It's kind of like Batman and Robin, like, hey, we know nobody's taking this shit serious, so I'm not going to take it serious. Like, but then you just have a shallow movie. Like, then you just have, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, you think just a slapstick is going to keep me here? Like, and that just pissed me off because of the trend. Again, the expectation is not just within the Marvel Universe, but outside of the Marvel Universe. X-Men, Spider-Man, Batman. This trend of actually taking these characters seriously and becoming tremendously successful. Then Iron Man 1 did that. And you feel like, oh, they're going to do that as well. In some sense, Captain America wasn't really slapsticky. It was just not an engaging movie to me, not that interesting. But at least they tried. It was like, it was kind of a bad movie or like a mediocre movie. But they didn't go the slapstick route. And the same with Thor 1 to me. But then here it came. Oh, here it came. And here it came. But then... why did I stick around? Captain America, the Winter Soldier, my most retarded character, the most stupid character that I found, actually became the coolest, or became cool. Captain America, the Winter Soldier was again an example of a movie where they took him seriously, made a great spy movie, and action. They added great action. It was like the first time where you felt, oh wow, they hired like an action choreographer for Marvel, because all the others like. Boom. You know, it's kind of like, it's not like Iron Man didn't have any cool action, but there's kind of like this symptom, the post-Jackie Chan Hollywood, where instead of having like, focusing on this choreography, it's kind of like they use just camera effects. It's kind of like the same also with the Spider-Man movies in some sense. Like, you use camera effects, getting up close, not showing the impact. Like, it didn't really feel like a real fight, and I guess the more powerful the heroes became, the greater the danger of that kind of becomes. Of that, and Batman was really cool, but it was always in the dark, so you couldn't really see what was happening. But there, at least you felt the combat. And in Captain America, Winter Soldier, you felt the combat. Like, it was really like you saw it, like you saw them run at each other, like they let you see the combat. You could see they were actually doing something instead of being like flash, snap, shaky cam, like the Bourne Identity stuff. They did it well, and nobody else should do it, right? Like, but that's just another downfall of like the action in Hollywood. But anyway. This really redeemed that. So I was like, wow, interesting story. I started to care about Captain America more because they treat him like a real character. He becomes interesting. They have good action scenes. They have a very compelling villain, and believable villain. Integrated the other Marvel characters in a very natural way in that movie, like Black Widow and stuff. It was like, okay, they can do it. And, well, now I'm very interested. Like, now I'm hooked again. Then came Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy was just a complete surprise. Had its little tonal difference in the sense of, like, being a little bit more comedic. But it was just, it was, again, to me, like, how are we going to make this work? I don't even know about the Guardians of the Galaxy. And I was a comic nerd. Like, I knew, like, all the 2 Hobgoblin 3 and the names, like, and that there were 4 Green Goblins, like, all these kind of geeky stuff about all these superhero villains. And then Guardians of the Galaxy, I never even heard about. Like, I knew about Captain America, and I knew his main villain is Red Skull. Like, all these little things, even the minor heroes that I didn't really like and didn't really dive into. I knew at least something about them. I never heard about Guardians of the Galaxy. I was like, how are they going to pull this off? It's going to be in space. I never really liked the Star Wars series and stuff. So to me, it was like, space. That was just my association with space. Meh, uber geeky nonsense. How are they going to mash this with, like, what I just saw in Captain America, right? And then they just pulled that off in some, like, it was like so interesting. Not, and again, so this is a tonal difference to me, like a huge tonal difference to Captain America, too. And what they did was like just great kind of cohesion. Because again, it was not like they took it super serious, that movie, but it would just really work well. Like, they worked really well, like the chemistry of the characters. Interesting, it was all new. So I guess that didn't have the, oh, I know what's going to happen, his dad's going to die, and like all that stuff. So I guess in some sense that was exciting as a comic fan. Didn't really know a lot about it. I did hate the ending of that movie, but I didn't hate it. I hate it as in I really dislike it when they do that, because they did it again. They didn't take it serious, like, right? And so it was kind of continuing this trend. I didn't hate it as much because I didn't know the Guardians of the Galaxy. So there wasn't some childhood joy that was trampled. But it was, again, another omen of like, okay, but you were like, okay, but the tone was different in this movie. It was kind of like within this universe, I can kind of accept it. even though I kind of regret that they did it. I don't know if they actually showed Thanos for the first time on the throne, like he's talking to Ronan. I think so. Thanos was like, I was interested in Thanos, didn't really know a lot about Thanos, and again, to me that was kind of like the uber geeky side of all those kind of like space kind of like things in the comics. I didn't really draw it towards. I always drew it towards like your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, in the sense like where it's more grounded, or Daredevil in kind of real life. I never really liked it when it became like so over the top, like he's shifting rupturing the universe. That was kind of like DC stuff. That's why I didn't like DC, except for Batman. And so yeah, I was kind of like compelling. Okay, he's going to be a big bad villain. This is going to be. I didn't really know Ronan. I think it was Ronan, right? Like I thought it was interesting a little bit because he was a little Shakespearean, over the top. But then again, they just did him dirty at the end. No real layers to him. He's just like, I'm very dangerous, and then I just dance, and then I win. It was like this trend of undercutting is just starting to continue. And then came Avengers: Age of Ultron. I have to say I've rewatched it a couple times, a couple of years after the pain and the heartbreak that made it not as bad. Still kind of enjoy it. But I remember when I watched it, this was the same thing with Iron Man 3. But, and to me, they did the same things with Iron Man 3. But also just bad storytelling. Like, or bad storytelling? Yeah, I would say bad storytelling. Uncompelling storytelling. That trailer, man. There's a couple of those heartbreak trailers to me. Of trailers that promised a movie that never came. Iron Man 3. And Avengers: Age of Ultron is another one for me. Like, with that there are no strings on me. Just the way they kind of, the creepy kind of vibe in that trailer to me made it to me like, ooh, Captain America Winter Soldier vibes, but with Ultron. And I was just fascinated. Again, I didn't really know Ultron that well. I knew, again, because but I knew enough to be like, ooh, this is going to be interesting. Like, the stuff they showed in the trailer, the idea of having an AI run amok in our connected world was like, oh snap, this could be like a pretty kind of dark thriller kind of stress kind of thing. And I really like kind of the potential of that, the potential of what you saw of kind of like the team being torn apart, of like their deepest stuff coming to the surface. And then I watched the movie. And to me, so like I said, that movie had the same comedic undercutting, especially in that final scene, like that entire thing is floating up in the sky. Could wipe out part of the planet. And then Hawkeye is just going to chill in a car with, so who is he in the car? Is it with Black Widow or somebody? And it's kind of bantering. Yeah, you know, like I was in the, like, I just don't get why they did that shit. Like, I hate, it's kind of the same thing to me. Like, again, it's maybe a bigger thing because they did it in the Pirates of the Caribbean as well. And like I said about Tony Stark, it works with Tony Stark because it's grounded in the world in the sense of it's connected to his character, and the world responds to that. And responds basically saying, this is inappropriate. This situation is serious. You're not being serious. And then they start to extend that to other characters. What makes you be like, they made a joke. It's not Hawkeye is making a joke. No, they are making a joke to me, to the audience. Like, so they're basically, to me, it feels like they're breaking the fourth wall. Like, you are not, like, this is supposed to be, you get what I mean? Like, I hated that shit because it's not genuine in character. It's not believable in the situation. So it's funny because the discrepancy of the situation, and they're being funny in a very horrific situation. Haha. Like, what are you trying to get? And I know Josh Whedon was still involved in that one, even though there were like a lot of, he left after that one, I believe, or they rewritten it. I don't know, something like that. There was stuff around it where it felt maybe that he wasn't able to do what he wanted to do. I hope. And otherwise, this is on you, Josh. I just completely hated that. What I also really, so that, again, that undercutting just removes, it just kills all tension that you built. Oh, the second part, bad storytelling. That movie was just basically, where's Ultron now? Like, that's the development, right? Like, oh, Ultron is now over here. Let's go over there. Oh, Ultron is now over there. Well, let's go over there. Like, that was just too simplistic, not really interesting and compelling to watch. It's just like, you just go here, then we kind of fight, and then we go here, we kind of fight. And in the meantime, stuff happens. Right? And cool fights, Hulk versus Iron Man, stuff like that. So they kind of started to rely more on the, this is going to be cool. And they played it a little bit, you know, like, oh, the disruption within the team. And there's still a potential good movie there to me. It's not like it's not a horrific movie. It kind of felt, again, like Spider-Man 3 and X-Men 3, like, except for the comedic undercutting. That was really just killing it to me. But what really kind of mad that movie for me was, again, it was the potential. This is the pain that I've always had, I guess, as a comic fan and as somebody, I consider myself a storyteller. Like the idea, again, disappointment comes because of expectation. Like to see the potential of those stories and then see what it becomes. So, again, the potential of Ultron to have an AI loose in our internet world, connected world, where everything is dependent upon the internet. Everybody is connected all the time. If you combine that with the fact that he can have a body anywhere and everywhere like that, it would be like, how do you even catch this guy? And they just, again, that potential went to, hey, he's over there. Hey, he's over there. Hey, he's over there. And it could be like when you remember movies like Enemy of the State. Enemy of the State with Will State, you know, and he's being tracked by the government. And it's like, crap, they're everywhere. Like, I can't get away. You know, that, to me, should have been the Ultron story. At least part of it. And it's like, they just didn't do anything with that at all. Like, it was just like, it was so ridiculous to me. It was like, he's supposed to be like an AI can take over everything, and he's just being a robot. Again, Iron Man fighting some robot. You know, like, so the to me, like the fact that he could be intangible would be super fascinating. Again, no. So I was really disappointed about like the idea of. And again, he was also kind of like cracking jokes a little bit. So that kind of. So I would say mood, like I said, like a Guardians of the Galaxy, or tone is maybe a better word. So the tone of the movies, it's like they couldn't settle in on a tone. Iron Man 1 had a serious tone. To me, Thor and Captain America, even though I didn't like them that much, had a kind of a serious tone. The first one, and it started. Iron Man 2 still kind of had that. It had a weird break where they shoved in some Avenger stuff in the middle. That kind of wasn't really good for the movie itself. Then Thor: The Dark World. Then again, Captain America had a great tone. So they're kind of teasing us with two different type of superhero movies to me. Like I would say the Nolan type of superhero movies, or again, Sam Raimi, Bryan Singer type of superhero movies, where you take the character seriously, where you have actual emotional development. There's an interesting, compelling villain that's believable. It clashes with the hero, like their desires, they clash with the hero. And you have the slapstick Batman and Robin kind of superhero movie. And they started shoving these things into one universe. So your expectations are like, am I going to get... That's why I was still engaged, was because there's a couple of these movies that were really good. Like, that were really interesting. Am I going to get Captain America: The Winter Soldier, or am I going to get Iron Man 3? And Avengers: Soldiers of Ultron, because it's like one of those big movies you kind of, especially when you were younger, you kind of live towards almost... That kind of just was like, oh, am I gonna trust the Marvel Universe? That's where it really felt like, if they could maybe the first one was a fluke. That was kind of what I was thinking. Maybe it was a fluke. Maybe they can do this. Then Ant-Man came, and you were kind of like justifying, like, yeah, again, didn't give a shit about Ant-Man. It was a funny movie, but you see, like, crap. More of this kind of comedic kind of stuff. And again, for Ant-Man, it probably worked because you're not really taking him seriously, right? Like, so I get like the dilemma of like, not every superhero character has the potential to become a Christopher Nolan type of character, or to become a Sam Raimi, or like a Bryan Singer. Like, you could say we're just going to go for it, but it's still going to be weird. I mean, he wears a goofy helmet and talks to ants, right? Like, so there's this goofiness to that. But there's like these other characters like Spider-Man, Wolverine. Like I said, the X-Men, would say are the easiest to Nolanize in some sense, but Spider-Man to me as well. Iron Man clearly as well. But this is like, yeah. So then you get Captain America, Civil War. That was again like Winter Soldier. Same directors, I believe. Again, to me, still a bit too much of the banter. Again, Spider-Man's a character that has the banter within his character, which you could, if you want, really explore, right? But but you had enough like realistic, engaging tragedy with T'Challa losing his father. You still have the Winter Soldier dynamic with Captain America, and then the clash with Iron Man. Again, a genuine clash, genuine emotions, genuine conflict. And you can really show the characters for their strengths, for who they are. So that's why, again, it worked. You have a compelling villain, because in some sense, Iron Man and Captain America, they become each other's villains. And who was the bad guy again? Baron something. Again, interesting, engaging enough. And again, it gives you the hope. Like, oh, interesting. Doctor Strange, I never actually watched Doctor Strange. I never like it when movies tend to go to that kind of occult kind of area. I never had it in the comics as well. I guess because of my background as a Christian. Having, I mean, separate conversation, but fictional magic versus real supernatural stuff. I try to just feel kind of in my gut what I feel about a movie that I don't like. But if you've encountered like real possession and exorcism and like real supernatural stuff, then I don't really like it in my entertainment, especially if the magic in the occult is kind of portrayed as like an innocent thing. I don't know. Anyway, didn't watch Doctor Strange. Guardians of the Galaxy 2. More the same for Guardians of the Galaxy, I'd say. Again, completely different mood. So it's like when everything's going to come together, you're like, how are they even going to pull this off? Because it almost feels like they're in different universes when you compare like a Captain America universe almost to like an Ant-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy. Again, Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Vermakelijk, you would say in Dutch. Entertaining, but then not taking itself seriously. It's kind of like, and again, doubling down on the kind of comedic element. I never really liked that. I get why they do it. Again, to me, it's like the Jack Sparrow syndrome. Oh, you like, what's he called again? Man, I forgot all these names. That's how far I suppressed this shit. Wow. This is bad. Groot, Rocket, the guy with the tattoos. Oh, how bad. Well, this is bad. You see how far I've suppressed this stuff. Anyway, he's like, oh, he was funny because he was like, didn't really get all the innuendos and like the metaphors. And then they just take it to here. To me, I'm kind of like, with a moment you kind of be like, you're doing this? Like, when you feel like pulled out of the movie, it doesn't feel like this character is genuinely this character interacting in this world. You're making a joke now. Like for a comedy, but even within a comedy, you would want it to be embedded in a character, like the great comedies with Jim Carrey, Eddie Murphy. They're always embedded in the character. They're not just outside of the character. This is kind of like the Family Guy kind of stuff. Like, it doesn't matter. This is a joke and we're telling it. And they're doing that. That's just to me, it's like this all the time. You're like out of the movie. Even if it was funny, it's like, haha, but I'm out of the movie. Because this is not contained, even within your movie, it doesn't feel genuine, believable, because it's not embedded in the characters. So again, expected it, was kind of fun, but to me, I wasn't looking for fun. I was thriving on, give me a serious movie with these characters that I love. And that's why I loved Nolan's trilogy, Spider-Man, and etc. I don't have to go over that again. Spider-Man Homecoming. Kind of liked it a little bit. Kind of liked seeing a new Spider-Man as a Spider-Man fan. I liked the banter within Spider-Man, I don't know. I kind of like that movie. Still kind of, I was getting used to getting over no more Sam Raimi Spider-Man in some sense. But I love just seeing a Spider-Man back on the screen. I liked Spider-Man. I would say, yeah, I'm like a 7.5. I like that movie in a sense, like, okay, interesting, where they're going to go. The first one, a little light. He's a teenager. I like kind of like having him be a real teenager, because the first Spider-Man was kind of like getting out of high school in the first movie. So, okay, so I get the lighter tone, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, kind of that. I love like the Goblin storyline of the original one. Spider-Man has some goofy villains, I guess. Like he has a huge rogue gallery, like an awesome rogue gallery. Has some goofy ones in there, but has some really dark ones in there, right? Like that have the potential for like a really heavy story. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah. Just okay. Thor, and then came Thor Ragnarok. Some people really like Thor Ragnarok. I actually skipped that for a long time because I knew what I was in for. Then watched it later. Kind of exactly what I expected. I knew it was immensely successful. It was pretty successful because it kind of went the Guardians of the Galaxy route, you know? It would be like, let's embrace Thor also like them. Kind of like, I'm not going to say like it was like a completely horrible movie, but to me that's like a 6. Like a barely, because again, I don't want to watch superhero movies for this. Like, I want to watch, why I always watch movies in general is just like, because I like compelling characters. I like great dialogue where you see great character development. I like character-driven movies. Maybe more art house, that we call art house. You have art house movies that are really like, yeah, you just want to watch, you just want a 10-minute shot of a mountain just to make a documentary. You know? But I liked art house movies in the sense of like non-Hollywood movies where they would really dive into a character and stuff. And I love the idea, the brief promise of a couple of years, maybe like a decade, of being like, we're going to do this to your favorite superhero character. So you're going to have great character development with really strange, otherworldly, or just unique situations that normal humans don't have, and yet they're very human, and yet you're going to have amazing action. Layering that kind of the character development. So I was just kind of frustrated of slowly seeing superhero movies bend to what they always been, a joke, right? And you could be like, but they're a good joke now instead of Batman and Robin, right? Like, but they're still a joke, and I just don't like that. So to me, it felt like Thor Ragnarok was already like, yeah, crap, they're doubling down on this. Thor's gone. To me, like, Thor's gone as a character. He's now a slapstick character. Like, I will no longer see Thor being explored as a serious character. I'm kind of giving up on that. Again, the setup wasn't all that great in Thor 1 and 2, but to me, the idea is still there. The idea of why it's also hard maybe to make Superman a compelling character, but to have somebody like Thor is kind of, in some sense, also like Iron Man, you know, like kind of irresponsible, arrogant, and has to learn how to be worthy. And then they just threw that storyline out the window because that was supposed to be a setup, but they just kind of switched that completely, probably because of Thor 2 was a shit thing, but they didn't take it serious there as well. But anyway, it's like they stopped believing in that. They stopped believing in the idea of having them be real characters. Thor Ragnarok. Then came Black Panther. Black Panther was actually pretty good, right? It was actually pretty compelling. Despite most people, I actually didn't really like the ending. I liked that villain. I don't know. I just felt a bit, I don't know what it was. It was just something that didn't quite hook me into that character. I don't know exactly what it was. It was hard to put my finger on it. I still really liked it. Like an 8, I would say. Like an 8 point something. I guess, I don't know. It's hard to put my finger on why wasn't that like a 9 to me? Black Panther. I really liked Black Panther. That villain had a very compelling angle. They were able to kind of introduce relevant themes in some sense, like current themes, without kind of preachy, being preachy. I don't know. I guess there was like to me in some sense, Black Panther, especially as a kid, he looks like Batman, but then different. I guess I would have liked to see more of a Black Panther within the world of Black Panther, within Wakanda, of him being like, again, kind of like how Daredevil was really rooted in his neighborhood. I guess I would have liked to see Black Panther really rooted in Wakanda and conflict there. And I guess pulling him to the West and having him on top of a car. And then, I guess in some sense, what I didn't like about him was maybe this is something that they are doing in the Marvel movies as well, slowly and more, was that I didn't really feel him ever be threatened. So like, he's cool and he's fighting, and then he gets this new suit that is absorbing impact, and he can just blast everybody, you know? Looks cool. But it kind of felt like he became kind of a character, even though he's supposed to be like just a superpowered human being like Captain America, to feel a little bit too overpowered. So I guess like the idea of not having your hero have a flaw, in some sense, is something that crept into the Marvel universe as well. And in some sense, maybe that's why I didn't like him as much. So I think those two things, which are again personal taste, I like the movie still, but to have him never really feel like he is a risk in some sense, and of course when he gets rid of his powers, of course he's at risk then. But it's kind of like cheating, you know. It kind of amplifies the point of there's no real risk when he is Black Panther, right? And they kind of do the same thing, I think, with the trains, right? Like the train, something about the train when the suit wears off or something. So again, that's okay in some sense, but I didn't really like that there's no weakness there. And anyway, still kind of interesting conflict. Forrest Whitaker just pulled me out of that movie a lot of the time. I'm like, ooh, the Black Panther! That's like, can it still be racist if you're already black, you know? It's kind of like, because you're not African, you're Black American. You're not African, even though they say African American. You're not African. I kind of saw some critiques from African reviewers that were interesting. But it felt like, yeah, I kind of get their critique of like, this is still America's Africa. They still did it. They put a lot of effort in bringing a lot of the variants of like more visual kind of representation of African tribes and stuff. And I really liked how they made Wakanda. But again, I guess maybe I never really read a lot of Black Panther, so maybe my expectation was completely off. But for some reason, I thought about, Africa. You have the wild, the savannas, you have the jungles. I was just kind of picturing Black Panther being like Batman, as in like Batman operating in the shadows, in the jungles of Africa, kind of more primal, animalistic, kind of like Batman. Yeah, I just kind of just was envisioning that, and didn't really get that at all. And again, because he had that cape as well, it's kind of give that vibe to it too. And it just kind of changed the vibe of Black Panther to be more like a science fiction-y, Iron Man-y kind of character to me. And I still thought it was really cool, but it just kind of, again, idea of anticipation and potential kind of robbed it of the idea of more being like a panther, kind of like playing into, like Batman plays into the idea of the bat, like the in the dark. And to me, it kind of robbed a little bit of that. It's just like, he's just kind of like an Iron Man with claws. Instead of being like, oh, he's really like that animalistic kind of like rip you apart. I think like one of the first scenes was actually like in the woods. And so again, that's more like personal expectation. Thought it would have been a lot cooler if it wasn't that much in the West, but more in Africa. I would really like a Black Panther movie that is just in Wakanda or in other African countries, and play into that a little bit more. Anyway, still a great movie. Wasn't really undercut that much by comedy. So again, Infinity War came around. That was really weird. Liked it, but didn't, in some, like, I love Thanos because, again, serious. Take a villain serious. Make him layered. There was just something about that movie that had a little bit of the Age of Ultron of like we're traveling around here or there. In some sense, you can't really get around that probably. I liked how it just started immediately. I did like Infinity War. But I do remember after coming out of the theaters of somehow still being underwhelmed. Don't really know why. I guess I was in some sense drifting away already from the world. I was just kind of hoping like this better be good because I was just kind of unhooking from the Marvel universe because I just couldn't stand the being kind of toyed with and like giving you promise and not, and promise not. Then came, but Infinity War, Thanos redeemed a lot, right? Like Thanos redeemed a lot, and I love they had a lot of serious stuff in there, like a lot of heavy kind of stuff. Thor actually started to get a little emotional layer to it. Of course, you have some of the banter, you know. I get that it's okay, but that at least not enough to spoil it. And again, like Iron Man gets stabbed. Like there was a lot of, and then like the disappearing. The disappearing was a little double for me. The people being snapped away. Because in some sense, like the vision was horrific. Like that was great. Like reversing time and then just having her kill him, and then that was like, yeah, that was really good. Yeah, no, I still like that, but for some reason it just didn't get over some hump somewhere. But it was Thor coming, you know, and then I guess again the it had some of these moments, but it lacked. It had some of these, yeah, it had really cool fights. I don't know. There's something about that it's really hard when everyone becomes so powerful and you have these teams to make very engaging fights where you really feel like there's a lot at stake. I did think they pulled that off. Yeah, no, not really sure. But I still really liked it. Again, Endgame, Far From Home. Yeah, did really like Far From Home. Did really like that. That was like, yes. You have some of the weird, goofy stuff with their kids. I can get it. To me, it's still too much. And too much, like I said, that out of the character kind of experience. And then we're just starting to go down the drain. Ant-Man and the Wasp, forgettable. Again, some you're just accepting like, but you get the greater kind of like pain from Marvel because you're a fan. So because you want to know, I don't want to miss anything for Endgame, so I'm gonna go see Ant-Man and the Wasp. If that's not there, probably not seeing Ant-Man and the Wasp. Definitely not seeing Captain Marvel. Well, Captain Marvel had some flashes like, interesting. And then you get to the movie, feminist shit piece. Of a very unlikable character that has no flaws, no development, self-entitled, just no, not interesting. Again, undercutting the tension at the end, like, poof, oh, the villain is nothing. So there's really no threat. So what was I worrying about? Why should I be worried about anything? So there's no tension, so why am I watching this, right? And they don't really get that for some reason. So you stomach through Captain Marvel and Ant-Man and the Wasp. I hated that they also shit on Fury, like Nick Fury, one of the more cooler characters that he just kind of like, let's just doo-doo on him for the sake of unlikable Captain Marvel. Then you get to Endgame. Endgame was just too long for me. And kind of like the first Avengers movie, it's funny, like when you actually rewatch it a couple times, it has this gap in the middle where you're like, yeah, too long. Of like fixing a blade on a Hela thing. Just too long. And I kind of had the same with Endgame. Even when I was watching it, too much of the, I guess, like the nostalgia train. So you get to like, what do you get, like the tokenism, the cameos. And a bit of that, that is America's ass or whatever. Yeah, like, again, the jokes to me just never I just kind of stomach through it because you know they're going to be there, and you need some comedy, maybe some comic relief, right? So some of them you're like, yeah, okay, America's ass, I get that, but it's just like, yeah, nobody do that, you know, like the kind of that feeling. I'm glad they didn't do that in the Nolan universe, but it's a little bit too much of a nostalgia, like a train, like how they go back to that. And with time travel movies, you always have like the limits of time travel movies that I know what's gonna happen, you know, like you're kind of like, so that's I guess a downfall of time travel movies always. Then you have that conflict, like Black Widow and Hawkeye. So they have like enough serious undertones, and just the end fight I really liked. This was really satisfying. This was really, I hated that I didn't get the Hulk. Like I was like, you're just gonna leave the Hulk out of the final fight? So that was also kind of like the promise of the Hulk in the first one. Like did that interaction with him and Scarlett Johansson. And you got some Hulk smash, but you never really got that kind of tension of the, to me, of, oh shit, to him this is in some sense like a real nightmare, right? They tried to play some of that in Ultron, but Ultron was undercut by a lot of other things. Like, I guess I really missed that because I liked the Hulk as a character, and I thought it was just always, that's why I liked Ang Lee's Hulk, that kind of like the fascination of why is he angry, and that's linked to this transformation and he can't control it. Like that is, to me, interesting to explore. And that was the one thing I didn't like. Like, where's my Hulk? Like he's in a robot suit, really? Like, oh, that was in the second one, right? Like in the third one, he's actually like, I just snapped. Like I get it, but I missed it. I just missed the Hulk. That's okay. The rest was completely awesome. like it was just in my pants, clean underwear. It was just awesome. It was just amazing. I can't say anything about that. And it was satisfying in an emotional sense. They didn't do Thanos dirty. They didn't come with any comic bullshit. They let him be Thanos. They let him be serious. They really have the kind of traumatic kind of weight to encountering him with our three main heroes like Thor, Captain America. Like, I hate that. No, wait. I need to get back to that. I hated fat Thor. Like, again, they had to do that, and oh, that's funny. Ha ha ha. He's fat and he's joking around and he's traumatic. Like, I just, you learn to stomach it because it's Marvel, but this is what weaning me off Marvel. So when we had that dramatic conclusion, loved, like, for Iron Man, his arc is amazing, from like over the older movies, from a douchebag to a self-sacrificing guy. Love that. But as soon as Endgame was over, I could just feel, oh, now I can let go of this shit. Because there's nothing I'm looking forward to now. There's nothing. Like, it's the end of an arc. Then you had Spider-Man Far From Home. As a Spider-Man fan, I should have liked it. Didn't like it. There was some, but again, same thing. That was kind of like Age of Ultron. Oh, the whole movie is just, you have a bunch of the most iconic villains of Spider-Man, and we're trapped in some dorm room having banter. Thank you for shitting on my childhood. Thank you for shitting all over it. I know everybody liked that movie because at the end you have the three Spider-Mans and back. I just couldn't get into it. I just still liked it somewhat. It's probably like a 6.5, maybe a 7. The end scene. Again, the whole story is just like, it's not really a real story. There's not really a real setup. I'm just gonna have to enjoy the end because there's 3 Spider-Men. That's just why I have to go enjoy it. And you have like Garfield Peter saving Mary Jane. That gives you a little tear, like a little, but it's like, it's what you get with these movies is like they're stealing excitement from movies that were really good. Oh, I'm not saying The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was really good. I really liked Amazing Spider-Man 2 for some reason. I liked Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man a lot. It was clearly overcrowded. Didn't really do the Goblin justice like it should have, but still, I still really liked it. But they starting to do a lot of that You should care because you know about it. We just take this, again, tokenism. They take this token from somewhere and expect this to have the same emotional impact as it did in that movie. And kind of like with the Goblin, I love the Goblin. One of my favorite superhero villains, I guess, in all the superhero movies, apart from Joker and Dark Knight. I just really love because he's kind of like the Joker, right? But then on a flying machine, in a sense, it's like he's really evil. He's really mad. He's kind of like Spider-Man's Joker to me. And I don't know, that movie just didn't work for me that much, I guess. And then the multiverse and rupturing and all that stuff, fake. And now I was just gonna go through Phase 4 because that's just like WandaVision. Didn't finish it. Falcon, watched like 2 episodes, didn't finish it. Loki, a couple episodes, didn't finish it. Black Widow, wish I hadn't seen that. What If, watched like 1 episode. Shang-Chi was really good. I hated the memory of the stupid actor thing, but really good. This origin story. Eternal shit. Hawkeye, didn't even watch it. Wait a minute, Spider-Man No Way Home. Am I mixing them up? Oh wait, Far From Home was the Mysterio thing. I like that one. But then No Way Home was the one, yeah. Like No Way Home. Even as a Spider-Man fan, that really hurts me to say it. I mean, I still like some of the scenes, but I'm not in the movie. So it's kind of like what they call the theater attractions, like that, like in movie studies, what theater started out as. Like, whoa, stuff is moving on the screen. There's a train coming at me, you know? And it's going back to that. I'm just supposed to be like, whoa, 3 Spider-Men on the screen. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. Or like, whoa, there's another character with another character that I know, and they're on the screen at the same time, and stuff is blowing up. They're just going all theater of attraction. And I think it was Martin Scorsese saying something like they're not movies, they're like roller coaster rides. And he's right in a sense. Like, but it didn't start out like that. And that's my pain. That's my rant. That's my fan pain of like, there's no more real heroes. There's no actual development in the heroes anymore, especially the new ones. Like I said, Tony Stark has this interesting arc. They shitted on it a couple times in like Iron Man 3 and stuff, not taking it seriously. But that bad storytelling, that having no more real heroes, having no more real villains, it's like somebody's got to take the punches at the end. Roar, some guys are being cool in 2 scenes, and at the end, they shit on them with a dance scene of like, oh, that bad guy is actually a complete retard. So they're not telling stories worth telling, and this started also in like Wolverine Origins, which is like that needs a whole separate rant on by itself. Again, and as a storyteller, having potential, like with Ant-Man, I get it. I don't know the comics enough to know whether there is a serious storyline hidden there. I get it, but there's so many characters. Spider-Man has so many compelling kind of characters that you saw in Sam Raimi's story. What about when a young guy really has to fight people all the time out of this weird sense of guilt and responsibility because of his uncle's death, and in the meantime he's trying to have a normal life, trying to have a girlfriend, trying to be like, that's what I didn't like. I liked a little bit of that banter because that's what Spider-Man is also in the comics, but to me I'd like to explore that as a real character. That's clearly coping, right? Like, I mean, he likes being Spider-Man. He likes something about that. But this has got to do something to you as a young kid, right? Like, so I like that angle. And that's why I like the villains like Venom, like the symbiote saga that all of a sudden brings out, like, the symbiote brings out all the kind of hidden stuff. They didn't really explore that to me in the Spider-Man 3 movie. Not in a real serious... You would kind of have to build up 2 layers, two movies, to just have him see how he deals with his suppressed stuff and then have the symbiote release it. That's kind of how you could set up a real Venom story. Still craving one day for a good Venom story. Craving a great Venom story. So they're not telling the stories worth telling anymore. They did it with some heroes. They tease you with it. But on the whole, especially with the ensemble movies, like, they started to just go back to Batman and Robin. They started to go back to, you don't have to take this seriously. To be like, you're kind of watching a slapstick comedy with roller coaster explosions. Cinema of attraction, right? Like, and it hurts to me because you got just a brief moment of the Batman was promising again. Of somebody who's taking it serious again. Like, so I hope the superhero genre is not just gonna die this horrible death or this zombie death where they're still making the movies, but a little less, and they're all still shit all the time. Like, I am not interested, I think, in anything that Marvel is making right now. Like, again, if we go through it, Moon Knight, didn't see it for the occult reasons, was actually kind of interesting to me, but I didn't like I just didn't like that character because of kind of occult things. Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, hadn't watched that. Just can really get worked up about that. Miss Marvel. Oh yeah, on Disney Plus. Actually watched a couple episodes. Had its own little vibe. But this is also when Marvel starts to become really, really preachy with the LGBTQ bullcrap. And all the woke kind of... This is where it's clear, like, it's super political. There's just one scene that just rips you completely out. Like, she's being interrogated. And he says, like... she says, like, in the Latino community or Latina community or whatever. Or should I say Latinx? No, you shouldn't say that. Nobody, no frickin' body was thinking that. Nobody was thinking that. Nobody thinks that unless this tiny minority of uber activistic people that live in a bubble, Latinx. That is nothing. That means nothing. That is absolutely a forced way of distorting reality. Nobody was thinking that in the audience, and it just rips you. So say Latinx, especially a professional, like, again, that just completely gets me out of that. That story never really gets serious. Like, I just stopped watching because it actually had its own charm in some sense, but you're like, it has its own charm, but I don't really care for this charm. Thor: Love and Thunder, I'm not even gonna watch that. Like, I just don't want to watch it. I'm Groot. These are like these little series about, like, I don't know why I should watch that. She-Hulk. Padre nuestro, perdona nuestras ofensas. This is like, I talk about preachy. Like, this is not even like, so they take what to me already had become bad Marvel storytelling, right? Like the jokes undercutting serious things, just sometimes having not taking the dramatic potential of the characters. Sometimes just bad storytelling, and like we just go from A to B to C, kick each other's ass until we get to D, where the final battle is. Not really thinking that through, and then comes She-Hulk. Again, like these, and now as for preachiness, now you're gonna add that shitty storytelling, not taking any characters any serious, and then you're gonna put these uber preachy activistic things in there that are just so cringy, and like that scene, like I couldn't watch She-Hulk. Like, of course I couldn't, but I've seen enough to not watch the rest. That scene where she's like, why are you not angry? Like, why don't you just shift into Hulk like me? Why can you control all the time? When I get catcalled on the street, when I have a incompetent man explaining my own competence, I do it because I have practiced my anger infinitely more than you. Self-entitled bitch. Sorry. Not sorry. Like, really? Especially within the context of the superhero journey? The Spider-Man should be sitting next to her, like, that entitled, oh, I actually lost my, Sam Raimi, like Spider-Man, I actually lost the life of my uncle because of my own selfishness, and I have to deal with that now for the rest of my life. I lost the life of my girlfriend because my supervillain threw her off a bridge, and now I'm actually not sure whether he killed her or me trying to rescue her killed her, and I can't really be with the people I love because that's my trauma. But your trauma is that somebody whistles to you on the street, and that you're in a room, and that somebody at your work is an asshole. Wow. I feel for you, sister. Like, really? Is this also like from like what the feminist movement has become? For like I come home and my husband come home and beats the shit out of me because the bread wasn't toasted well or whatever. Real oppression, or I get raped by somebody, I get touched up, somebody's whistling to me on the street. Like I'm not saying catcalling is good. I think it's ridiculous, and I get that it's intimidating. It's not good. But really, like this is like your traumatic deep inner rage. Like again, compare that to Hulk in his movie. Oh, my father accidentally killed his mother because he wanted to kill me, because he thought I shouldn't be live with whatever's going to happen with me. Yeah. But people are whistling at you. There's a incompetent guy. There's a douchebag at work that is explained like, yeah, like everybody has. Like you're the only one at work? Like the guy sitting next to you doesn't have the same thing with that douchebag? It's like, man. It becomes even messed up because it brings your frustrations about the real world and stuff that's happening now, brings it into that movie, and it keeps feeding into that. It's like, you already have bad storytelling, bad character development, the hero without a flaw, there's no real thing going on. And then you're adding the frustration about no real thing going on, artificial conflict in the real world, and that as the conflict in this movie, while you have a superpowered human being that's supposed to face some real interesting opposition. Like, this is like, fire them. As an aspiring writer, right? Like, now on my second novel, trying to create stories. It just makes it feel like, why is somebody making money with this? And I am here. Like, I'm not saying I'm ready for the big leagues, but I can write a better story than that. I can tell you that. Like, I can tell a better story. Like, you let me work with somebody who's at least delivered at least one script, knows a little bit about the inside for the business. I can deliver a better story than that. And I'm not saying that because I'm really good. I'm saying that I think I'm good enough in analyzing stories, but I'm saying that because that's so bad. So bad. And that's a personal thing of mine. That's why it's a rant. I get so pissed off seeing, like, incompetent people. I get you now, She-Hulk. Incompetent people taking competent people's work. Millions are being poured into that shit. Millions! I had that already with stuff like Wolverine, Iron Man 3, Spider-Man 3, X-Men 3 was already like, if they could have just done this, it would have taken from mediocre to really great. Or like, you see these little chances and opportunities, and here you're just like, there's no chance, and it's just scrap everything. Let's just write a good story. This, like, how do these people get a job? Again, this activistic bullcrap is the only reason why these people are getting a job. Man, this tokenism, like, are you from a diverse, oppressed minority? Take my pen. Take these millions of dollars and shit over a fan base. Please, shit all over a fan base. Werewolf by Night, I don't even know what that is. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Yeah, I don't think I have to keep going. Some people like that. That was just, to me, like, again, bring the real world into it. We're just mourning Chad Boswick. That was a tragedy. We lost him. It was messed up. But I can't. That movie was just sad. Yeah. Shuri, sorry. Fun actress for a supporting role. Can't carry a movie. Nobody's going to believe this skinny female Black Panther getting the shit out of this super powered Namor character. I don't know. It's just, and then forcing another diversity hire Iron Man character that is incredibly competent, and yeah, just nobody cares about that. It's like Ironheart or something. Like, make compelling characters like Miles Morales, best Spider-Man movie ever to me. Like the first Miles Morales, like Into the Spider-Verse. Like, I don't know what the first one was called. Best. That's, to me, is like one of the best, maybe probably the best to me Spider-Man depictions, and a super great origin story. Just make. I mean, I'm biracial. I like diverse characters. I like seeing diverse characters, in the sense of, like, but only if they're compelling characters. I don't give a shit about somebody's skin color if it's not contributing in some sense to the story. If it's not, like, if the character, if it's just like a like a skin, like in a video game, take a different skin, character plays exactly the same. That's how you're actually shitting on minorities to me. Like, just throwing this token black character because we don't have a lot of black characters. Go make them. Go make interesting characters. Okay, sorry, different rant. Wakanda Forever wasn't absolutely horrible, but to me, it was kind of like, yeah, I'm done with Marvel. Like, it was this was like the best in a while, and it was like, nah. Right? It was just cool the way they did No More, but like again, they didn't really. So I come to the end of my my rant. There's a lot more wrong. I guess the shared universe has its perks and then its downfalls of forcing each other in each other's world without having like. It's the same way actually, right? Like if you write any story and you have side characters and your antagonist, your villain, like you want whatever they want to in a very natural way start to clash. So that's how your plot kind of develops. They want the same thing. They run into each other because their motivations make them run into each other, because their fears and beliefs and wants and goals, they clash, right? And that's why it's engaging. So the only way to me like a shared universe becomes really compelling is when that happens. Just in the same way as you would write a normal movie. Oh, this guy actually has his own stories, but his story that we saw in the last movie was going this direction, and now they're actually clashing in an interesting way. And what it started to become is just like, big bad guy, superheroes unite, let's get him. Sure, in some sense it's like we all need to stop him, you know. But it would be so much more interesting to have, for example, like a Daredevil Spider-Man story where they're both after the Kingpin, and the Kingpin in some way is really messing with them both individually. That makes them come together in a sense. And I don't know, somebody gets in legal trouble, you meet Matt Murdock. Like you can think of a lot of ways where that could be entwined in a lot of interesting ways. They clash maybe in their way they do their superhero stuff. Daredevil a little darker, Spider-Man. But we have the Kingpin, we need to stop him. Is Daredevil going to go over the edge? Is Spider-Man going to go over his kind of pulling punches kind of thing? Is he going to be dragged along by the darker side of Daredevil? Is Daredevil going to be pulled up by the more friendly neighborhood Spider-Man? That like there could be a lot of interesting things there, and then you could have a crossover that is interesting and compelling, right? And it just kind of starts shoving things in where nobody really cares about. I mean, the Marvels now, that you kind of see you just see them imploding. I hope they just kind of reset everything. I think they need to go back to small stories and just letting directors tell real stories. This is when Disney bought Marvel. That's like a thing looming on the background of this. What are you talking about? When were they actually buying them? It started to go wrong to me earlier. When did Disney buy Marvel? 2009. Okay, so that was pretty early. So probably Iron Man 2. Oh yeah, no, this makes sense. So Iron Man 3. They started to shove the formulaic kind of thing in the kid-friendly, like the jokey thing. It felt like Disney's poisonous DNA. I mean, it's not poisonous when you had kid movies. I love the 90s. I love the Disney movies of the 90s. Let's not speak of the abominations that have come forth more recently. It's still got some nice movies, but like it's, again, the preachiness. They lost their creative heart. So to me, how can they get back? Put this in the hands of genuine, passionate storytellers that love the original stories. Don't go for diversity hires. I mean, again, I'm visual. I hope to make it someday as a storyteller, but I want it to be because I'm a great storyteller. And if you're like, hey, you're a great storyteller, I'm not going to talk about affirmative action right now. No, I get the idea of making space because of the bias of people, maybe also only hiring the people that look like them, and the biases they have towards other minorities. So I can get it if you're like, hey, let's keep an extra eye open, but you just want compelling stories. Like if right, I'm not saying that they're all diversity hires, but just the stories. I think it's a problem of both sometimes the preachy feminist director in combination with the Disney enforcing their kind of sauce on that movie, so a director doesn't really have free reign to tell a compelling story. I think they need to go back to smaller stories, and then slowly go from there. Yeah, that's my rant. I'm kind of heartbroken a little bit, but I mean now, like I said, I don't care anymore. Like it's been so long. Like I said, it started in phase 2, like 2, 3, and it's just been like that frustration has been building so much that it's now really hard to win me back. Like you really need to have like, even to have like a movie have like scored like 90% Rotten Tomatoes, everybody's positive. I'm like, yeah, but is it still the jokey dokey bullcrap? Is it just okay because it's a nice blockbuster and a nice roller coaster? Or am I really seeing the characters that I want to see, that I love, that I grew up with? Are they being taken seriously? Am I going to be taken seriously as a viewer? And it doesn't feel like I'm being taken seriously as a viewer. So, yeah. Shit on it. They shit on me. And I won't have it anymore. Probably, if maybe Spider-Man's rebooted, I would be interesting to see if they would reboot, like if Sony reboots like the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man and tries to take that in a little bit more serious direction. I would definitely be open, and I would be really, a recast of Wolverine would make me really curious. I love Wolverine, I love Hugh Jackman, but time for somebody else to me. Like I love a little bit more comic accurate, smaller Wolverine. In the comics, he's always like this smaller guy, and Hugh Jackman is huge. I mean, again, I love this Wolverine, but I think it does add to the character view of like a more like a Tom Hardy kind of like in Fight and Warrior. That to me was just Wolverine, basically, like this, how the intensity that he could portray. I don't know, the rest of his looks, he could fit like Wolverine, maybe with some good makeup, and but kind of like that is what I'm kind of looking for, like that kind of intensity. I still love Wolverine, so I would always give a first X-Men movie, I guess, a try. But if I see any of these signs, I'm like, I'm out. Like, I'm out. Still want to make that Venom movie. If I could one day make that Venom movie, or make like a Wolverine Weapon X movie, or even like Wolverine Origins, like the really, really early, like if you read that comic, Wolverine Origins, just that, basically that comic, adapt that, make an adaptation of that. Man, I love that. I'd love to do that. One day, writer, director, something different. I would like that, yeah. That's my dream. Anyway, done shitting on Marvel. It's hard because I cared. And now I don't.